There's this new thing going around now. All black women have high porosity hair. Information is 100% incorrect. So if you would like me to break this down to you using the scientific method, then let's get right into it.
Trust that exactly where you are is where you're meant to be. So keep your chin up so your crown doesn't fall. Remember, you're royalty.
So let's hop right into this. Number one in the scientific method is observation. So when they did their initial experiment that led to the outcome of the conclusion that all black people have high porosity hair was this. First, number one in the scientific method is going to be their observation. Who were their test subjects? If you go and look into their documentation, the majority of the people that they were testing were either victims in a certain area or perpetrators. Their observation was on a certain group of people. These were different crime scene investigation photos and things of that nature. Number two is the question and the research of the area, right? So the question that we are going to ask now is like, okay, why, now that we've isolated the group and we've observed this group of people, right, similarities that this group has, well, we're noticing that this group, they all have high porosity hair. They're noticing raised cuticles, holes, and splits within the hair shaft, which you automatically put up as high porosity hair. And the research on the topic, but the thing is that portion number two was a little one-sided because they only researched those test subjects, right? So those test subjects all had high porosity hair. Most people who are not of African descent, who don't have naturally curly hair and don't study the science of hair, do not understand that all porosity is not genetic. A lot of people have mechanical damage that ends up resulting in high porosity hair. The majority of these people and the majority of their test subjects were victims of crime or people who were committing the crimes to begin with. There is nothing in their scientific findings or within this article that demonstrate or explain the causes of the high porosity hair, nor does it mention that high porosity hair can be caused mechanically by a person who does things that weaken the bonds that hold the hair together. There's nothing about that within the research. In any other field, this would count this research as flawed because all steps of the scientific process has not been followed. So does that mean that this is scientific fact? Absolutely not. This article is flawed because there are pieces missing to this puzzle. Number three, after you perform all of these tests, after you collect a whole bunch of data, after you find cause and effect, which was not done at all in step two, then you begin to draw your conclusion. Not drawing your conclusion, making a hypothesis. When you make a hypothesis, a hypothesis is classified as an educated guess. Basically, that's what a hypothesis is. So what they do by number three of the scientific method, we have now already done step one and step two. Now step three is like, okay, I'm a guess. Number four, testing with experiments, right? So this is the thing, this portion wasn't done. What type of testing on these dead people's hair shaft did they do to prove that their hypothesis was correct? What type of testing could be done on a hair shaft of a woman who is dead that can't tell you her practices? She can't tell you of whether or not she's been using a relaxer and that's why she has holes in her cuticle. She can't tell you that she's been using box color herself and that's what has holes in her cuticle. You don't know. So many parts of the scientific method that were not complete. So nobody can say that this is scientific fact. The only type of testing or anything that they were able to do on number 4 of the scientific method was looking at the damage after it was already done. And every time they saw a black victim, they saw that they had lifted cuticles, holes and rips and tears within the hair shaft. Does that mean that all black people have high porosity hair, or does that mean that you were in the area of women who didn't really have the finances to have the proper hair practices that caused them not to have damaged cuticles? That is the question, and something cannot be a scientific fact proven if there are that many holes. Number 5 is analyzing the data. Now, it's almost virtually impossible to analyze data that you do not have. Number 6 is reporting the conclusion. So reporting your conclusion, all that means is you're going from step 1 through step 2 through step 3 through step 4 through step 5 and writing down everything that you've learned from the test subjects that you've observed, from their everyday patterns that you've observed, to the cause and effect. You draw all of these different conclusions and then you print your article, right? A study that they're now toting online saying that black women all have high porosity hair is an incomplete study. It has holes, and it was made, all of these studies were made on women that are no longer living, so they could not report the patterns that could have caused them to have high porosity hair. There are multiple women that have low porosity hair. My daughter was born with low porosity hair. Her hair is not damaged at all, and she has low porosity hair, right? Because high porosity hair is a cuticle that's open, so it sinks to the bottom. But if you also have rips and tears within the hair shaft, that will also make the hair sink, because there are 2 reasons that a test could come out high porosity, sinking to the bottom, or with a high porosity result. There are multiple reasons for lifted cuticles. I have high porosity hair naturally, and my hair is doing really good. But then by the same token, you can have somebody who has high porosity hair that was caused by mechanical damage. And if the scientific method is followed completely, you won't find any of these holes. And there are so many different questions that go unanswered, even within the article that this person is told as fact. This is not fact. Black women do not all have high porosity hair. That is a myth. And if you are a woman with high porosity hair and you believe her, you start treating your low porosity hair like high porosity hair, your hair is going to fall out. Every black woman walking the face of this earth does not have high porosity hair. One minute nobody's paying attention to porosity and thinking about it, and the next minute only black women have this. It's like, for whatever reason, no matter how much time goes by, there is always going to be somebody that comes up and separates us. Like, it's almost like black women don't want things to be all in one unit. It's like, oh no, black women only do their hair like this. Oh, black women only do this. Like, no, it's not true. You can have low porosity hair, medium porosity hair, or high porosity hair, no matter the color of your skin. And without the proper testing to determine the cause and effect of this high porosity hair, you cannot then make a conclusion that all black women have high porosity hair. Test subjects that you've proven this conclusion on were not even living or alive. It makes no sense. Make it make sense.
Trust that exactly where you are is where you're meant to be. So keep your chin up so your crown doesn't fall. Remember, you're royalty.